So Kid Galahad stops a battered and bloody Jazza Dickens after 11 rounds to become the new IBF Featherweight champion. Anyone who saw my pre-fight video for this fight would know that I predicted a stoppage around round 8 or 9, probably coming in the form of the corner throwing in the towel. I predicted that Galahad would stop Dickens. Just to break down this fight, there was a good, sharp start, I thought, from Jazza Dickens. He came out, he was very mobile, looked very sharp and had some decent speed. And yeah, you could tell he was really up for this fight and really well prepared. And I think he, like some people have done in the past, he kind of maybe caught Galahad a little bit cold, because Galahad, he fights at this constant pace, but it's not a particularly fast pace. And so I do think he's susceptible to being caught out by someone who has a good engine and good speed. And yeah, I thought the first round was, I thought Galahad looked uncomfortable because of the sharpness of Dickens. But as soon as Galahad turned southpaw, personally, I noticed that Dickens looked noticeably less comfortable. And I think that's to be expected, because Dickens, being a southpaw, typically with southpaws, they have less experience fighting other southpaws, and thus it can make them a bit uncomfortable because they're now in a situation that they're not really used to. But on that note, Galahad, coming from the Ingle gym, is probably never had that problem, because southpaws in that gym are 10 a penny, seen as, nearly all of them are taught to be switch hitters, and they can do it with a good degree of proficiency. And so I think Galahad has the better experience against southpaws. Dickens, on the other hand, clearly didn't, for my money, and you can see he wasn't comfortable in that matchup. And I anticipated that once Galahad got into a rhythm, it'd be very difficult for Dickens to keep up. I felt he'd maybe be able to do so for a couple of rounds, but as soon as Galahad gets that momentum, he would really start to beat up and tee off on Dickens. And Galahad got into that consistent, steady rhythm, and you could tell that Dickens was feeling the pace. He was bloodied. I think he was bleeding from his nose and his mouth, had a little cut over his left eye, and he was falling behind. And then Kid Galahad, he had these long, straight shots, and with those shots, they're very accurate, now coming in 2s and 3s. They were picking Dickens off, and from there, Dickens, he started to fight really within himself. He was no longer extending himself and trying to control the space between him and Galahad. He had his hands glued to his face, as you could probably imagine. His face was getting busted up, and that severely reduced his output. Kid Galahad had a point taken off in the 10th. I think that was for pushing Dickens' head down. I can't remember if the commentary actually picked up on it. I mean, they picked up on the point being removed, of course, but the rationale behind the point being removed. But to Dickens' credit, he did maintain effective head movement throughout. He proved to be quite an elusive target, at least keeping his head as an elusive target. But in response to that, Galahad just began to target the body more, which is typically your best bet. When you're in against someone who does have good head movement, aim for the body, because the body doesn't move as much. So Galahad was doing that, and throughout the fight, because of his good head movement, Jazza was able to land some counters here and there. And one particular counter was his left hand over the right jab of Kid Galahad. But Jazza Dickens notoriously has no power. He is somewhat accurate with his shots. He has a decent amount of speed, but he doesn't understand proper punching mechanics. And as such, he doesn't have any power, so he doesn't have the power to save him, even when he lands an accurate counter. Because how many times have we seen knockouts come from a rear hand counter over the jab? It's very common because it lends itself to dealing damage. But Dickens, he just doesn't have the power. And this is really why you see certain fighters get more chances from referees. It's because a referee can take into consideration how prolific a puncher is this fighter, or how many times have they turned a fight around late, or when they're behind, or when they're being beaten up. Jazza Dickens, based on my memory, I've never seen him do that. He's not a puncher, and so he was really just getting picked off by Galahad for most of the fight. Really, he had some moments where he'd land these shots, but as I say, there was nothing really on him, nothing to deter Galahad. And by the end of the fight, Dickens, his eyes were cut and swollen. He just had blood coming out from his mouth and his nose. The white trunks of Galahad and white gloves of Galahad were now pink due to all the blood, so it was very brutal, and the right call was made, in my opinion. I think the referee gave Jazza Dickens every chance he could have, but they're just, once again, the levels, they're just on different levels, the two fighters. Saw it in the first fight, saw it in the second fight, and yeah, Kid Galahad goes on to become IBF Featherweight champion. Be interesting to see who's next. Josh Warrington was present, so you'd have to imagine that that's a fight to make down the line, the rematch between himself and Kid Galahad. But of course, Josh Warrington has to deal with Mauricio Lara, which many people, understandably so, are picking Lara to win that fight. I think I'm yet to form an opinion on that one, but if you put a gun to my head, I'd definitely go with Lara again. So I guess another option would be the Lee Wood fight for Kid Galahad, as Lee Wood is now a champion of sorts. I guess that's kind of a natural fight to make. But yeah, I guess it's onwards and upwards for Kid Galahad, so it'll be interesting to see who he fights next and when. If you want to talk about this fight in the comment section below, drop me a comment and I'll get back to you. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next video.